Hey girls, happy February. Elise here, first Friday with our session 5. This month we are going to be talking still about JavaScript, but a little bit of a departure from what we've been doing, which I like for 2 reasons. One, it gives our brains a break from being fully immersed in the world of forms, and it also gives anybody who's still working on all of their form JavaScript a chance to go back and also keep working on that, and then maybe get a chance to show at this month's sessions if they haven't already. So we are going to be talking about what is actually an element in HTML, but very little HTML code is required to use it, which is pretty nice. It's called Canvas, and Canvas is a very aptly named element. You can think of it like a blank creation space. You put it on the website, just like you'd be hanging a blank piece of canvas on an easel and getting to work painting. So for anyone who really likes art, this could be a fun combination of art skills, design skills, and programming. I would say that for the easiest time to experiment without having all of your existing stuff kind of in the way and balancing the JavaScript you've already written, start off with a new CodePen for this session. You can always get to a point where you're happy with what you've built, and you can copy that back into an existing project to make a really cool drawing appear or anything like that, or a game that you build or an animation. Those are just some of the things we can do in Canvas that we'll get to very shortly. But I find it easier to start with a clean slate. So if you open up a new CodePen, there's going to be 2 things that you need to do first. Step 1 in your HTML, you've got 5 lines. It's very easy. 2 of them on the top and 2 of them on the bottom are ones we have to write each time. And then all the power lives in this line right here, which is saying the element is a Canvas element. We have to give it an ID because we're going to talk to it in JavaScript, so it's got to have an ID. We're going to give it a width and a height. I just make mine a really big square because I think that's a nice space to work with. And then we close it, nothing inside of it. And we're done. You have to create this though, because otherwise if you start getting down in JavaScript, the paint or the art that you're making in JavaScript has nowhere to go. So make sure you add this part first. Any other times that we're talking later on about adding this or that type of thing that you can do in the JavaScript part, make sure you come back up here and reference that if you're starting a brand new pen, you're gonna have to make sure this is in there or nothing's gonna show up. So once you have that going, your second step is in your JS, in your JavaScript section. You declare a variable called Canvas, and you tell it that that is equal to the element with the ID Canvas, which is again your Canvas ID. This is really also a test as to how many times you can say the word Canvas in a couple sentences. And then we have the second line, which tells us that we're going to have this ability to deal with our canvas in its context as a 2D element. There is also a 3D Canvas context that gets very, very crazy, but right now we only care about the 2-dimensional version, which means we can draw things, we can make art, we can do all that kind of stuff, but we're not looking to pop anything out of the screen. So we have a variable that we just call C, which is that context. So we will use our C variable for all of the kind of things that we're going to be doing. To start practicing this and some of the things that you can do, I really like this tutorial. This is the link. It's called Code Monster and it's at crunchzilla.com. It looks like this when you start. This is your little Code Monster. And it is a tutorial that walks through all of these different things. So you have C, again, if you remember, that's the context. So we start acting on C right away because that's anytime we want to create something on our canvas, that's what we act upon. So here, the very first thing they're showing you is how to make a rectangle. The way this whole tutorial works is you're going to have code that'll happen on the left side. He's going to walk you through all of these different options for how to change things and what impact does this have. If you change this number, what does it do? You'll be able to directly see what impact that has. At any point, what you have in this left side, whatever you have in this left side, you can take and you can copy and you can put back in the JS section right below these 2 things. So here you can see if I had HTML and I had JavaScript and I put those in, I would put this on my 3rd line. I can even show you very clearly here to make it clear. So you would come into your new pen, you'd copy this part into your HTML, very easy. We would copy this part into our JavaScript, and then we just have this one line so far, but that's going to give us a black rectangle. Copy that in. Boom, black rectangle. So as you go through this whole tutorial, anytime you're thinking what's on the right side looks really cool, take everything on the left side, come over here, find your way right below the context variable, and then paste it in here. As long as it is, it should replicate exactly right here what you see on the screen right here. So you can see, if you click down in this tiny little link that says lesson sections, you can see exactly how far this tutorial goes. There are 59 total. I guess if the end doesn't really count, there's 58 total things. This is going to do, it's going to walk through all kinds of things, drawing shapes, creating loops to do multiple shapes on top of each other, rotations of shapes, drawing things like trees and fractals and ferns and really interesting, almost like ice, almost like snowflakes, things like that. It's going to talk about animations. It's going to talk about movement. It's going to talk about bouncing balls and physics and collisions and acceleration and things like that. You can go as far as you would like to go. When you're happy with something you want to bring back into CodePen, you bring it in, you check it out. You can either take it back away, you can add on after it, because again, you can keep adding to it. But you also can create multiple pens and just save them as your name, either with a number or describe what it is, something like that, so that you can search in CodePen for all of the work that you've done as you keep going through and finding interesting things to do. Okay, so that is Crunchzilla and the Code Monster. I think it's really helpful because as you go through, I'm going to click through a bunch of them really fast and you can actually kind of watch what happens. He describes, here's what needs to happen to do this. He tells you how to change colors, change sizes, use variables instead, make pretty squares, make all kinds of boxes. Fastest I can click through here, sort of like a test. There, a bunch of boxes that go there, and then you have lines and how you can make shapes with those. You get into whatever that crazy thing was of a bunch of pyramids. You get to do stars, you're gonna fill stars, you're gonna create loops to make many stars, you're gonna do things like this, make all kinds of really cool. If you've ever had one of those spirograph kits where you could put the pen in the hole and spin around really fast to make something that looks really neat like this, this is basically like a spirograph that you can do in JavaScript. And you can make faces, make all kinds of stuff. There's rotations. Trying to get through really quickly so you can see the trees and things like that. Where you start making, here's branches, and then you can add more DNA. And then here is how you make a tree. So you can do, with just this code, you make a tree like this, and you can change different things. They'll explain to you how you can rotate, how you could change angles and scale variables, and what impact that'll have. And you can test it right in here. Whoops, I can test it better if I can type. So you can see, whoa, tiny little thing, but that made a really big difference in this. So he will help you walk through and kind of figure out all the different things you can do. By your tree, you can add leaves, you can create ferns, all sorts of things like that. So at any point, come in, make things in here, and save the coolest things you can find. Save the coolest things that you make. You can show us as many of them as you want. Just make sure you save them something so that you can search for your name and get all of the drawings you might have in there, so we don't lose any. So after you've done that, now you'll see this little boxy friend that we have here. You see they are made up of shapes, a rectangle, some circles, a little bit of an arc, and lines. So a lot of what Code Monster is going to provide is an understanding of exactly how we make those things and how they can fit together, stuff like that. So you can now customize this boxy little friend to add whatever you might want to do. Clothes, shoes, hair, a hat maybe. Give them a friend to talk to. Maybe they're very, very bored. It's hard to say. The second page here is all of the code in JavaScript that's necessary to create our dear sweet Boxy friend. So our first step, again, is using the HTML code from right up here. Always come back, always have to have this, always have to create the canvas. Otherwise, everything we draw is going to be a whole lot of nothing. So let's say we've done that here. And then for right now, I'm going to actually remove that section. So here's my, now I'm redoing a new one that has the HTML we need. And then in our JavaScript here, you will see, okay, so the one thing to note in here that we haven't seen yet in JavaScript, you'll see these lines that start with 2 backslashes. These are called comments. They don't do anything at all to change our code. They don't execute. JavaScript ignores them completely, but they let us find things really well. And they let us label what's happening as we go, which is really helpful when you have a bunch of code like this that looks kind of the same. In almost all of these, there's a move to, line to, stroke, move to, line to, stroke to draw things. So if we forgot which one was left, which one was right, which one was going anywhere, you'd have to go through and kind of figure out. So we have our first comment is the section that creates our canvas. This should look very familiar. We get our element, we get our context, we're good to go. Then we have a comment that labels the section for drawing the body, gives us a color, gives us a rectangle. That's his very boxy frame there. And then we have a section for left leg, left arm, doing the upper first and then the lower, right arm, upper and then lower. And then we have the head, we have a left eye, a right eye, and of course a smile. Now I recognize this is a lot of code with a lot of tiny numbers, and it would be lengthy to type all of this out. So in order to get you going, if you take this link right here at the bottom and you open it, you're going to get all that code right there. That'll be really easy to copy as opposed to copying it out of this PDF, which always has some formatting problems that we can't quite figure out why. So there's always some kind of an issue. So this way you can just take all of this, I'm selecting it, I'm copying it, coming back in here, and I'm pasting it. When I do that, there we are. Hello, box friend. So now that you have all of that, you can go ahead and you can start customizing. You can figure out if you want to add some hair. How would you add shoes? Maybe they would be rectangles. Maybe they would be triangles. Maybe you'd want to put some pants on him or her. Maybe you would want to put elbow pads on. Maybe they like roller skating. Who knows? Just as a comparison, you can see here, so I have all of this stuff. This is what I just copied directly out of here. If I just switch over here and you watch the stick person change just a little bit, this is a demo that I made where I use almost all the same code, except you can see that I have some additional things commented in the section. So here's my section for hair, which I gave a color, and then I did an arc that goes over the top, and then I did 2 little lines to kind of look like a center part and some bangs. And then I did some shoes, which are just give it a color for both, and then 2 rectangles, 1 for each. I think triangles would definitely be a little more realistic, but you know. So you can do anything you would like to customize this person from that to something like that. It's also a very good practice with just coming in here and messing with numbers in the same way that CodeMonster encourages you to do, just to see how everything kind of fits together. And then once you have that, my other favorite thing about this month is overall, it's a lot of experimenting. There's not a right way to do any of this. There's not like did you complete everything? Did you check through everything? This is much more of a self-guided adventure in figuring out all of the different ways you could customize this, and as far into the CodeMonster as you're interested in going and figuring out what else they have to offer. But my favorite part tied to that of this month is that we get to look at some things that other people have built, because it's the best way to look at their code, figure out how they did it, and then learn from that. So some of these are very complicated, but even still, you can go through and you can glean things from the code that you can start to figure out how they might work. So I have created a collection in CodePen of all of these for very easy reference. There are functional demos. So I've created a demo of a clock and a planet orbiting. There are animations. So there is a particle animation, particles bouncing around. There's falling confetti. There's a buzzing bee, and the buzzing bee and this game I'll call out. For both of them, they came, the code came through these 2 tutorials that are fantastic. They walk you step by step through how it was built. They explain each part of it. So if you're looking through some of the games and some of the animations and thinking, wow, these are really interesting, but it's a ton of code and I don't understand all of it, I would absolutely recommend going through the tutorial for the game here and for the buzzing bee here, which is in this chapter of this PDF. Unfortunately, there's not a good way to link directly to one page of a PDF. This resource in particular, honestly, has many things, has some games, has a lot of different things in Canvas that you can do. So if you're really sucking up all this material, feel free to read through this and build some neat things that you can show us. And then we also just in general have some games. So someone made a Simon Says game in CodePen that you can open, you can look at the code and you can play all of these as well. There's a Block Blaster, a real tongue twister. And then the Breakout game, which is where you bounce a ball up at bricks on the ceiling, and when it touches one, it knocks it off, and then the ball bounces back down, and you have to keep your paddle moving over so the ball doesn't escape past your paddle. There's also some very interesting things like this one, which is really cool because you use your mouse to just tear at this cloth. This is all done in JavaScript in a Canvas element. Make my way down here. So you have right here, Canvas ID equals C. And then down here, you can look through all the different things that they use to do this. So a lot of them are really, really fun. We have our buzzing bee, just buzzes around at random. But you can see in here, again, I used comments in line in here so that you can remember what the link for the resource is. You can come in, you can see they have things like the colors. You could change the colors of the bee and things like that. You can mess with all of these. You can change the size of the bee. There's really nothing stopping messing with all of these different numbers, trying to figure out exactly what's going on. How is he created? What does he do? Things like that. The collection in general, in case we haven't seen, I don't think I've used a collection in CodePen so far, just looks like this. So it's called the Canvas collection, and it has, so here's the game with the bricks up at the top, here's the bee, here's my stick person, here is a working clock, here is one where you can see the Earth rotating around the sun and then the moon rotating around the Earth. There's Simon Says, there's a game about moving the bear to the star, and then this rotates. A lot of them are very, very interesting. Falling confetti is a lot of fun, so are the particles and the games. So I like going in, and you can easily see when you open one of them, even if you decide that you want to change the view that it uses, you can see, so it has, right now, it has colors set aside for the confetti. You can see they are color values set in here. They set 5 different color values. Come in and mess with the color values and try to change and see if you can make all of it change. You see the confetti follows your mouse, which is very cool. Very disorienting if you stay on the page very long, but very cool. And then lastly, this one is not on CodePen, but it is a tower defense game that's made entirely in Canvas and JavaScript. You are a team of pirates trying to protect your field of daisies from the sea creatures of Davy Jones. It's a lot of fun to play, and I also think it's a great representation of the power of Canvas and JavaScript. I also think that after you go through the stick person, and after you go through Code Monster, and after you look through some of the code behind, especially some of the games in CodePen, you get an unbelievable appreciation for how long it must have taken to build this game. So overall, I think it's a very good sort of summary of all of the things that are possible, even just with Canvas and JavaScript, which is pretty impressive. So that's what we have. This is just a really good palette cleanser because you guys have been doing really awesome the last few months. I'm so proud of all the effort you've put in with the forms and all of the creativity you've shown. And so this way, this is another chance for everybody to sort of flex their creative chops a little bit and show us some very interesting things that they might uncover and figure out as they're experimenting. So our sessions, our virtual sessions will start on Tuesday, February 16th at 6 o'clock. In the email, please RSVP for whichever session works best for you, just so we have an idea of who to expect. And obviously, as always, if you have any questions as you're going through this, or any of this does not work for you, or any of the resources are a problem to access, please just reach out by email and let us know. Thank you so much. Have a great upcoming weekend and couple weeks, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.